Cowards die many times before their deaths. The valiant never taste of death but once.
PBI was founded in Canada by a group of Quakers. Its central idea derives from Gandhi's vision of an international peace brigade, which could act as a neutral third party in situations of conflict to bear witness and, by its very presence, prevent that conflict from escalating.
Kate, well, I'm so glad that we are having a little bit of time to chat about some of the latest developments, because there has been quite a lot happening in the field lately. I had a conversation yesterday with Dina Metza in Honduras, and I mean, she actually had to go to the PBI house to speak with us, because apparently over the weekend 3 men unidentified went to her house.
Tocaron la puerta y pretendían saber quiénes vivíamos ahí y quién era la persona dueña del cable. Entonces, cuando no les dimos los nombres, entonces ellos procedieron a cortarme el internet. Y ahí tengo las fotos donde uno de ellos incluso iba a agredirme. Afortunadamente ahí hay guardias de seguridad en la zona y solicitamos la presencia de guardias de seguridad, y eso evitó que me fueran a agredir. Dejé toda la denuncia con todos los datos, pero aún no tengo respuesta. Entonces, por eso les decía anteriormente, es muy probable que yo tenga que cambiarme otra vez de esta colonia. Eso les digo y les confieso que impacta muchísimo en mi familia.
If I were a women defender with children under my responsibility, and I had to be moving house every now and then being followed, maybe sexually harassed, or having to send them abroad because it's completely unsafe for them to be living close to you, I would probably won't be strong enough to be able to do the work that is required.
Bueno, yo he tenido que sacar a mi familia al exilio para que vivieran tranquilos en un país europeo, y se fueron a vivir a Bélgica y siguen viviendo en Bélgica mis hijos, mis nietas, mi madre, mi hermana. Nosotros aquí como defensores de derechos humanos y promotores de la paz, pues tenemos que encontrar la fortaleza de donde sea para no dejar que nos humillen, ni que nos amedranten, ni que impidan que hagamos lo que tenemos que hacer como defensores de derechos humanos.
I'm so lucky to work for this organization and in support of those defenders that are a real example, I mean, for me, they are like the Mandelas, the invisible Nelson Mandelas of our generation, There are many, many invisible human rights defenders in this planet. You get to know of one or two who suddenly become very high profile, but there are loads of people working behind the scenes in a very invisible way, and yet doing really important work.
I think at the heart of PBI and the work it does is a very simple and beautiful idea that simply by sending someone to be a companion, a friend, a witness to somebody else doing extraordinarily courageous work somewhere in the world where their life is at stake for doing that work is a really simple idea, but it's an extraordinarily powerful idea.
The human rights defenders themselves would say to you, if PBI wasn't accompanying us, we would not be able to go to this area. And you could see that by doing it, because, you go through roadblocks, and you would say, come to a military roadblock, and then later on you go through a paramilitary roadblock. Well, I mean, that was not supposed to happen. So you would have to say, look, we saw a paramilitary roadblock down the road. Make sure it's not there when we come back, and that kind of thing. So it was a definite, demonstrably working.
the individual human rights lawyer on the ground will know that part of the protection that PBI or the Alliance gives is merely by their presence and their capacity to act in Europe, or in our case in the UK. Equally important is that those who might be inclined to harm the human rights defenders, of course, they will never have heard of the Alliance, one suspects, but they might know that the last time they tortured a human rights defender, there was terrible trouble because phone calls started coming from lawyers in England and judges and ambassadors. So perhaps that might help to inhibit abuse. I
was sort of gladly surprised to see how the legal community responded to us. You think, oh, they might see us as hippies, they might think that, we are too grassroots, perhaps, we are not push enough for them, to lend their support. And yet, they are not focused on that. They are focused on the actual principles behind the work that we are doing. I think it's been such a wonderful lesson, in terms of solidarity.
I wanted to help because it was obviously something which was well worth supporting. In a sense, it was a new area for me. There were very, very brave lawyers risking their lives for their clients, and there were these remarkable volunteers going out to assist them. And if there was any way in which I could help galvanize interest in the English human rights world in what they were doing, seeing as I was completely retired, that was something I could do.
Lawyers are human beings. Some people may forget that, but they are, and they know what are the personal pressures, even within a safe environment like ours that we're working under. And we certainly do have fellow feeling for other men and women who are lawyers.
As a lawyer trained in human rights law, obviously my obligations is to really explore what we can do at international level, and we brought the case against one of the military colonel who was allegedly involved in torture in Nepal, who was living here in the UK. The UK law does allow to use jurisdictions on any torture cases, even if it happened in other country.
The whole question of the rule of law is so fundamental that you can put in countries things like health and education into place, you can fund them from abroad, but if you don't have a properly functioning rule of law system underpinning it all, it can just be a waste of money.
It's easy as lawyers sitting in London to think that all lawyers kind of wear black suits and sit behind a desk. But a lot of them are really out there in the field doing incredibly dangerous work. Maybe they do need relabeling as human rights defenders, but people who are putting themselves at serious risk because they believe in certain principles and won't budge from them is a very inspiring idea.
This is a poem by David Ravello, who is a Colombian human rights defender who's now been in prison for 5 years. Accuse me of being nonconformist, but with ideas. Accuse me of being a revolutionary, but with arguments. Accuse me of being a radical for my principles. Accuse me of being stubborn for persevering. Accuse me of being armed, but with words. Accuse me of not staying silent because my voice will always be heard. Accuse me of speaking out against the violations of rights. Accuse me of being an instigator for being a defender. Accuse me of being a communist for defending an ideal. Accuse me of being naive for believing in peace. Accuse me of being alive for not letting them kill me. Accuse me of everything, but not for being a criminal.
That's a picture of a trip that we did to Kenya. Mark Cunningham and myself, we went to the slums of Nairobi. We went to Mathare slum, and we had the privilege to go into the little rooms of one of the ladies in this picture, Rachel. And they have an organization that they've set up that it basically involves supporting other women that have been victims of sexual violence in the slums. And despite the challenges that they face regarding the police and the lack of respect that they have against human rights defenders, but in particular women human rights defenders, it's very inspirational to see how much joy there is in their lives,
Since I've started to work on defenders, I've been aware of the work done by PBI to protect defenders, and I was struck by the brave and courageous work done by your colleagues in the regions. I would encourage you to look at the possibility to enter other countries in which currently defenders have no means to protect themselves. Of course, you would need to have additional funds to do that, but I'm sure that with additional funding, you could do more to better physically protect defenders at risk.
If I had a choice of which human rights defenders to support, which I don't ask for that. That it would be really the people who are supporting environmental causes. Because one of the things about protecting the environment is, it seems to me, the ultimate way of protecting people we don't know, because it's often about future generations, and I think future generations get a very poor hearing.
I really want to say about the future that this is the 21st century, and we would see that the need for protection of human rights defenders should be institutionalized. We have not yet made it an absolute norm that human rights defenders should be protected. And so the need for PBI is continuous until we reach that goal.
What I took away from my year in Colombia was the privations that those who commit themselves to this cause in that context have to live with. I remember accompanying Alirio Uribe, a lawyer with the Human Rights Lawyers Collective, Jose Alvear Restrepo in Bogota. And their office was quite high up on the somethingth floor of a very tall building in the central Bogota. The very first time I accompanied him there, we got out of the bulletproof Jeep that we had to travel in the basement, and thinking 14 floors up, and he said, "Let's walk." And I was like, "Seriously? 14 floors up?" And he said, "Yeah, because it's the only exercise I get, because I can't take the kids to the park at the weekends and do the things that normal people do, because it's too dangerous." So I thought, yeah, let's walk.
I never came across a case where I didn't think a human rights defender or somebody accompanying them, I never came across a case where I thought they were other than wholly genuine. The commitment was usually totally clear.
Un hermano mío fue secuestrado por escuadrones de la muerte. Cuando mi hermano desapareció, a los pocos meses yo salí embarazada de mi primera hija. Pero cuando él fue capturado, yo lo buscaba y lo buscaba desde la madrugada hasta terminar la noche y no lo encontrábamos. Y nos daban noticias de que habían muertos y que posiblemente estaba mi hermano ahí entre los muertos. Entonces eso es bien complicado. Eso fue lo que me motivó a meterme a toda esta defensa de derechos humanos, porque yo dije, jamás permitiré que una familia pueda sufrir aisladamente sin que nadie le ayude. Entonces, desde ahí estoy en la defensa de los derechos humanos.
The human rights defenders are the most extraordinary people I've ever met, because they've been doing the same work for 20, 30 years. Day in, day out, they've seen colleagues disappeared, killed, and they're just extraordinary, just carry on. It should be awarded a Nobel Prize, all of them, for their work over the years.
I absolutely love this work because it's inspirational, and it does offer hope for a better world. And you do see change. You see the defenders achieving amazing things. They get justice. They do change laws. They enable others to exercise their agency and
bring perpetrators to book.
There are times when you're doing a boring work, more admin work, but with that belief, with that sense that almost anything that you're doing here, no matter how boring it is, it has a much deeper dimension, and it's really impacting in the lives of these individuals. It's like a life threat, life-death sort of situation. It just happens. You don't really question if what you are doing is the right thing or not. You just know you are in the right place at the right time.
Yo creo que paradójicamente ese miedo que he tenido tantos años me ha hecho liberarme del terror y me siento un ser absolutamente libre. O sea, y libre no quiere decir que no crea que un día me pueden mandar a la cárcel o que un día cualquiera me pueden matar. Pues yo digo lo que tengo que decir, la convicción como defensor de derechos humanos, no lo digo por mí mismo, lo digo pues por todos los que trabajamos en esto. Nosotros no sentimos nunca que estemos perdiendo el tiempo, pero en la perspectiva de que el sacrificio de muchos de los nuestros, el exilio de los míos y de los otros, finalmente será recompensada la transformación social de esta humanidad y de nuestra sociedad en particular.
Ok, gracias.
Bueno, yo creo que no necesitamos una varita mágica. Necesitamos presionar, necesitamos hacer ejercicio de la ciudadanía y con esto vamos a triunfar. Seguramente vamos a triunfar, no hoy, no en este año, pero sí vamos a triunfar muy pronto.